Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about the story behind my recent song Bring Down the Capitalists. Now, I was inspired to write this song after listening to a podcast called Intelligence Squared, and the episode was called The Psychosis of Whiteness. And I think they had an academic and activist called Gahinde Andrews. He's at the University of Birmingham here in the UK. And he was talking about how basically he thinks there's kind of like almost like a group delusion amongst large parts of the West about the role that about the history of racism in the West in sort of modern European and Western history. One such example he gives is about these some African treasures that were plundered in Africa in the colonial era by Britain in the British Empire, and sort of even now the prevalent attitudes for the British establishment seems to be that these treasures belong to Britain, whereas actually that really for me doesn't make much sense, and these treasures really should be restored and given back to the African nations where they were plundered from originally and permanently. My opinion on that is as well, so really that got me thinking about the history of racism, history of racism, and for me I think a lot of it has been justified under the banner of capitalism in the West, I think, over the past few hundred years, I'd say. So that's of some debate. Obviously that's not always the case in every single instance, but capitalism has for me been a large problem and purveyor and justifier of racism for me over the last few hundred years in the West here. The point of the song really was to provoke some debate around this and to sort of get some discussion going about the role of capitalism and whether we think it still fits going forward as a sort of a framework for society. And interestingly, there was a book by Paul Mason, the British journalist and activist, a few years, about five years ago or so now, about post-capitalism, and in it he talks about how the digital revolution and other such things like cooperatives as well are heralding potentially a new time, and that could usher in a new time, a new post-capitalism time, and he sort of discusses some other ideas around that. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you think that capitalism is still viable, and is it working well for everyone in our society, or do you think it's time to discuss other alternatives like Paul Mason does in his book on post-capitalism? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Post them in the comments below. If you like the song as well, go stream it on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, etc., and look forward to hearing your feedback soon. Cheers. Bye.